Great. Thanks, Emma. Hello, everyone. Good to see so many of you online. And I know we probably haven't spoken whilst I've been in the Ops Centre, but still nice to have the opportunity to meet you all. My name is Michelle, and I head up the Leader Management team. And whilst I'm based in the UK, the Leader Management team is a global team. So I work very closely with colleagues of mine. I work with Johnny, who's based in the UK, and I also work with Misha, who is based out of Melbourne in our Australian office. But basically, it's our responsibility really to look after all of our leaders, and that's from the time that they're recruited through to the placement on their trips. We still look after them when they're away on their trip as well. And then we continue to look after them when they come back from their trip, making sure that they receive feedback so that they can make a decision as to whether they want to work with us again in the future. It's a really varied role, and I get to work with so many very interesting people. I've had the opportunity to support trips myself. I've been to Cambodia most recently, but I've also been to Morocco and Finland in the past as well. And I've been with the organisation since October 2021, but previous to that, I did a very similar role with a different organisation. So working with World Challenge leaders and overseas expedition leaders is something that's really close to my heart, and I really enjoy what I do. And now I'm going to hand over to Jill so she can explain a little bit about who she is.
Right, good morning, everyone. I'm not sure what time it is in your part of the world, but it's just after 8 in the morning here in the UK. So I'm Jill, and I'm very pleased to be asked to come along this morning and speak to you. I'm an expedition leader with World Challenge, and I've been with World Challenge since 2014. And I've been very fortunate to have had many, many opportunities to travel to some marvellous destinations across the world, including places like India and Africa, Madagascar, Borneo, Mozambique, South Africa, Eswatini. Just so fortunate. So that's a little snapshot about myself. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jill. Before we actually sort of go into the main part of this session, I thought it would be good to give you an overview of the points that we're going to cover so that you can understand the depth and also the information that we want to get across to you today. I think really we need to start with giving you an understanding of who our leaders are. And then we'll go into explaining how we work with our leaders, and then go into a little bit more detail in terms of the roles and responsibilities of our leader when they're working with their team in country. And then because obviously the aim behind this session is to really improve the way that we work together as an organisation, we thought we would put out some top tips for working together with your World Challenge leader when they are obviously at your initiative, and hopefully you will find that beneficial. Jill's also going to feed into this little bit as well in terms of obviously explaining some of her experiences and what's worked well when she's been working on an initiative previously. And then we'll open up the floor to you so that, obviously if you've got any questions, then please obviously either put them in the chat, or alternatively we'll open up at the end of the session and you may be able to ask. And these questions can be on anything. It can be about myself, it can be about Jill, it can be about our leaders, or it can be about anything to do with our processes as well. So this is your opportunity. So please feel free to ask as many questions as you like, because obviously that gives us the opportunity to make sure that you leave the session today with as much information and that you feel as informed as possible. Okay. So without obviously further ado, I thought I'd give you a really good overview in terms of who our leaders are. And to do that, I think it's really important to paint a picture in terms of where they come from. And I think it's important to understand that there isn't a single mold for a leader. Our leaders hail from different backgrounds, they live globally, and they bring with them a wide range of experience. They may or they don't actually work full time for World Challenge, and they certainly don't necessarily all work full time in the outdoor education sector. So they're likely to have very different day jobs or full-time jobs when they're not working with World Challenge. And to give you an understanding of that, some of our leaders are teachers, so they may have actually previously travelled with World Challenge as a school leader, and Jill will feed into this a little bit later for you. But they could also be doctors, paramedics, they may have been in the military previously, they may even have been accountants or chefs or furniture makers. I think we've had a few in the past as well. Some may be on their very first trip as a leader with World Challenge, and others may have been leading for 20 years or more. But it doesn't matter what experience and backgrounds they're from. I think the most important thing to remember is that they will have all been through our multi-step recruitment process, as they are required to hold certain qualifications and have demonstrated specific leadership skills. And that's the one thing that they will all share in common. And I will go through those a little bit in more detail after this particular section. But in terms of the qualifications we look for from our leaders, all of our leaders, regardless of whether they're based, will have some form of outdoor qualification. In the UK, that's the Mountain Leader Summer Award as minimum. But in Australia, it could be an outdoor education degree, for example. Before they travel, they'll all have a wilderness first aid qualification so that they can provide essential medical support and CPR in remote locations. They'll also, if they're UK based and based in Australia and New Zealand, have a mental health first aid as well, which is increasingly important for being able to support young people whilst obviously they're travelling on their trips. They'll also have what we call in the UK an enhanced disclosure certificate, but in Australia, for example, or other parts of the world, it might be a working with children check, or it might be a police clearance check, but it's something that demonstrates that they are not barred from working with young people. Aside from that, though, they will also have a lot of experience as well. And what we're looking for is our leaders to have at least 4 weeks worth of travel experience to the destinations that we routinely travel to. So hopefully they will have been to Southeast Asia, they will have been to an African destination, and they would have been off the beaten track as well. So not necessarily staying in organised hotels and things along those lines. They'll have also had 10 weeks experience of working with young people, specifically hopefully in a residential setting, so that they really understand how to get the most out of the young people that travel with us. But they'll also have a proven track record of effectively managing incidents and emergencies, which is really important because obviously they are our eyes and ears out on the ground when they are on trip. So it's important that they have safety at the forefront of everything that they do. Following on from that, though, I think all of our leaders share the following skills, and I'll just briefly go through those as well. They'll all be strong, confident, and have inspiring leadership skills, which is important, obviously, when you're working with young people. They will definitely have the ability to take ownership and have exceptional problem-solving skills, because I think we all know that when you are traveling, not everything goes as smoothly as perhaps you have planned. So the ability to actively problem solve and it be positive and really get to the grips of the issue. That's what we're wanting our leaders to be able to do. So they'll definitely have the ability to do that. They'll have resilience, so they'll always be able to maintain a positive outlook even when the going gets tough. But they'll also have great interpersonal skills, so they're able to create an environment for experiential learning, for student development, but also so that they can liaise with all members of the team, whether that be yourself as our community partnerships, or whether that will be with the school leaders from the schools that they are travelling with. They'll all have a very strong safety awareness and a high level of risk management and ability as well. They'll definitely have a focus on the customer experience, and they'll be committed to delivering exceptional experiences across all of the trip. And they'll definitely be able to adapt their style, because it's important that they're able to meet the needs of the individuals that they travel with, but also the schools that they travel with as well. So I think if I was to sum up this, it's really important to be aware that our leaders are not full-time members of World Challenge staff. They have their everyday jobs, and they do this because they love to be able to inspire young people, give young people the opportunity to develop, but they also love to travel and to obviously meet new people as well. They are, however, a really integral part of our organisation, and we want our leaders to return year after year. And that's one of the things that we're really, really proud of, is the fact that although our leaders don't work with us full time, many of them come back, and we've got a high retention rate. And that's the way we would like to keep it, because in doing so, they continue to bring with them their wealth of experience, but also an understanding of World Challenge as well. And I think, just to kind of obviously underline this point, I'm going to ask Jill to kind of feed into this, because Jill will explain what her background is and what she did previously to becoming an actual leader herself.
Okay, thanks for that, Michelle. Okay, so my background comes from teaching. I was a teacher of physical education, sport, teaching 11 to 18-year-olds, and I did that for 37 years. And I was also an assistant head teacher, responsible for working with the community, the local community around the school. So in my penultimate year of teaching, I had the privilege to go as a school leader on a World Challenge to the Indian Himalaya, and it just blew my mind completely, right? And I spoke with the expedition leader at the time and decided that I really wanted to do more of this, and I couldn't understand how I'd never heard of it before in all my years of teaching. So I was kicking myself that I hadn't learned about it earlier in my career, because I'm sure I would have swapped very, very easily. All right. Anyway, moving on. I did all my training after I took early retirement from teaching, and after we did 2 winter seasons skiing, but I also carried on with my training for my mountain leadership qualification. 2 years down the line, I qualified, and in 2014, I started working with World Challenge, and this was something very, very close to my heart. I'd worked with children, throughout my teaching career, and this just seemed an extension of what I wanted to do. I didn't want to retire and just put my feet up. I'm not that kind of person. I'm very sort of outgoing. I love the outdoors, and I wanted to share my passion with young people. So I usually take 1 or 2 trips with World Challenge each year. I'm married, so it's not fair on my husband if I go away all the time. Although he said he quite enjoys the time when I'm not here. But it's really exciting for me. Every trip is different. You've got a different team of young people. You've got different school leaders. And it really is a special experience. And building up that rapport with the team is very close to my heart as well. And it's just lovely watching the young people develop as you take the trip, and the trip develops. Yeah, it's a huge learning curve, both for myself and for everyone else involved in the team. And it's great to see. And when you reflect at the end of the trip, it's such a warming experience, I would say. All right. So when I'm not working with World Challenge, I do a lot of voluntary work. I do a lot of stewarding for the county where I live, guided walks, and My husband and I will love to travel abroad. We have a camper van and we travel a lot in the camper van, and we do a lot of cycling around the UK coastline, which is almost complete. We do it in different sections. I have a very small business that I run as well as a sideline. My hobbies, I enjoy wild swimming, paddleboarding, hiking, cycling, and keeping fit. As I said, I'm married, we have 3 children, and we have 3 grandchildren, with one more on the way in July. So hopefully on my return from my second trip this year, I'll be here for the arrival of the new grandchild. So that's basically my background. Michelle mentioned that, that they like leaders that have the experience of traveling. And I definitely came to World Challenge with that experience, because I've always enjoyed when I was teaching young people abroad, we did a lot of sporting trips, we did ski trips, we did the outdoor trips, outdoor education trips. So yeah, it was, to me, it felt like a natural progression to go from teaching into World Challenge. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jill. That's really, really insightful. So now we've had the opportunity to get to know who our leaders are. I think it's also important that we work through how we get them from being, applying to us as a trip leader, to actually getting them to the point where you're meeting them in country when they arrive with their team. And I mentioned it briefly previously, but essentially all of our leaders will have gone through our recruitment process at some stage. Those that are leading their first trip this summer will have gone through it recently, but others that have been working with us for nigh on 20 years, they may have done their recruitment process some time ago. If they do have a break in terms of coming back to World Challenge, so for example, they don't lead for us for about 3 years or more, then we do ask them to re-go through the recruitment process. And that's because we totally understand that in those 3 years as an organisation, we may have changed completely, but they will also have different skills that we don't understand, or they may not have actually been working with young people or developed their travel experience in that 3 years. So we would have to reassess whether they still have the right mentality and ethos to really be a leader for World Challenge again. But in terms of the recruitment process, we would start by receiving an application from them and looking into the application form to see that they meet our requirements in terms of the qualifications, but also in their skill set as well. We'll have a brief online interview with them so we can dig into their experience a little bit more. And then every single one will be invited to attend a 2-day in-person assessment process, where we obviously explain a little bit more about the organisation and the support that they can expect in their journey with us. But we'll also talk about what it's like when they are working with our community initiatives and what they can expect and what we would expect from them. But we'll also talk to them about the support that they would receive whilst they're away as well. The second day of that assessment process is really for us to put all of our prospective leaders through their paces. So we'll be putting them through scenarios and asking them to manage an incident so that we can be double sure that they have the right skill set to be able to lead for us. Following that process, it's about placing them with the right trip. And when we do that, we need to take into mind their experience and their skills. So if they've got jungle experience or they've been to altitude previously, then we might consider them for an itinerary that might have that specific input into the trip. We may also have to take into account the specific schools that are travelling with us. That school may have a request to work with a leader that they've previously travelled with before, and that's just great. It might be the fact that they have a particularly young group and that 2 of the school leaders are perhaps a little older, so they might expect or want to have a slightly younger leader, so we would take that into consideration as well. It's important that we consider the gender ratios of the team, so we need to know that if they have a mixed team of females and males travelling student-wise, that in terms of the adults that will be travelling with the team, we need to make sure that there's an even split as well. So, for example, if we had a mixed team of male and female, and we had 2 male school leaders, teachers travelling with the team, then we would have to place a female expedition leader. And we also may take into consideration the location of the school as well. We want our leaders to be relatively local to the schools that they go away with, just so that obviously they have that opportunity to visit them and build that all important rapport before they travel. But also we've got a close eye on our carbon footprint as well. So we want to reduce the impact of travel in terms of the environment as well. But once we've actually allocated a leader to a specific school, we get them introduced to the school and also the team as soon as possible. We create a leader profile for each leader that gives a little bit of explanation about who they are, but it also includes a photo so that you're building that visual rapport straight away. All of our leaders will go into the school for a training day that they can obviously use to prepare their team for the trip ahead. But it also gives us the opportunity to make sure that our leaders are building strong rapport, both with the students, but also with the school leaders as well. And then in terms of onboarding them, we need to make sure also that they are fully prepared for their trip. So all of our leaders need to go through some training, and that might be in the form of some online training modules where they'll be covering things like water margin safety and safeguarding. It would also be attending an in-person summit alongside their school leaders. And they also will attend an online session around navigating your itinerary, which I know some of our partners have joined before as well. We'll also run a pre-departure call with every single leader so that we can make sure that they are as prepared for the trip as they possibly can be, and they're also set up ready for success. And I think that's so important. I don't think it would be right if we were to obviously send our leaders without any expectation in terms of what we need from them. So we're really careful to make sure that we set that expectation. And what we're looking for really is when our leaders are in country with their teams, we absolutely want to make sure that they are focused on safety. So we absolutely need to be confident that all of our leaders are making sound judgments and reacting accordingly during an incident so that we can be sure all of our teams are safe. We need them to be able to take ownership, and that is really about making sure that the trip is successful and is everything that the school is looking for. So this isn't really just about getting good feedback, but it's about also making sure that the whole trip gets good feedback. They are our representative and an advocate of World Challenge, so they need to be able to deal with issues proactively and in a positive manner. In doing so, you'll find that they probably will reach out to you as well. And then aside from that, they'll also be taking ownership by playing an active role in promoting student learning and growth, which are all really important in terms of the ethos of World Challenge. These leaders also have to be adaptable as well. It's important, it's not just about them and their view of what a trip should be. It's really important that they're able to tailor their needs to the individuals and the team that they work with. In that way that we know that they can build rapport with both school leaders and also the students, and that they will deliver a fun experience as well. So I've kind of touched on it already, but in terms of obviously the roles and responsibilities of our leaders, overall, we expect them to facilitate a smooth, engaging and impactful trip. So, and you know, that's really at the root of everything that we do. In doing so, they're going to be responsible for risk management through the implementation of our safety standards and managing local incidents and emergency responses when necessary. They're going to have the overall responsibility for any safety decisions, and they're also going to be the point of contact between ourselves in the operations centre and also the team as well. But as our representatives on the ground, as I said, they need to be adaptable, and we want them to solve any potential issues positively and proactively. And in doing so, they'll probably come to you if they don't feel that something is working well. Over and above everything, though, they will be facilitating student leadership because it's fundamental in terms of the focus for World Challenge. And therefore, they're going to be actively guiding students to take on as much responsibility as possible. And I think that's one thing that I'd really like to stress, because I think it's probably alien to us all, because when we think of customer service and having a great customer experience, we naturally assume that that means us doing everything for them. We need to flip that on its head, however, because in terms of a World Challenge trip, we want students to be doing more. So, we want them to be able to hopefully take part in helping to cook if the initiative is catering for them. We want them to help clear up. We want them to be involved in every aspect of the initiative if at all possible. So if your leader is asking for, additional opportunities to get the students involved, it's not because they are trying to be awkward, it's because they want the students to be involved as soon as possible. So with that in mind, they are going to be looking to work closely with you to help facilitate that student involvement as much as possible so that they can maximise the impact that the students will have when they're with you. I think it's important to remember, though, it is a two-way relationship, and it's important to know that you and your World Challenge leader are part of the same team. So we are also hoping to provide similar training to our leaders in the background so that they can understand a little bit more about yourselves, but also how to better work with you going forward. Jill, I don't know whether you wanted to feed into anything following that.
Yeah, certainly I can. I think it's really important to remember as well that for some students, well, I'll say maybe the majority of the students, the community initiative is the part of the trip that they most look forward to. And the students, they have a wide range of skills, right? And sometimes they're hidden on a trip, but when they come to the initiative, right, they always amaze me because they've got these hidden skills that they just want to share, right, with the local community. So it's tapping into those skills that the students have because they can really sort of raise the bar, all right? They are incredible once they get going, honestly. So it's really important, like for myself and the school leaders and the team and the community initiative coordinator to all be on the same page, all right? So, so that we all understand each other, communicating regularly, and our expectations are all the same. And I mean, this can fluctuate from day to day depending on the work rate, or there's different elements that come into it that can affect community initiatives as the weather, etc. But for example, on one of the trips last year in Morocco, we were up in one of the little villages that had been affected by the earthquake the year before last, and we were helping to build a road through the village. And it was a very physical and manual experience, and the team themselves, the young people, just excelled at it. They really, really enjoyed it. They put their heart and soul into that community initiative, and they worked alongside the local labourers, the women and the men, and the rapport between them all was fantastic. It was really heartwarming, all right. And we kept building in breaks, and the local women, they'd brought refreshments and gorgeous food that they'd made for the youngsters, but they said this was normal. It wasn't just because we were there. They did it for their husbands, for their partners anyway. This was like a ritual that they go through. It was incredible. It really was. So these young people, they felt a great sense of achievement at the end. Yes, it's only a small part of the trip, the community initiative, especially if it's a 2-week trip. But I would say for 3 or 4 days, that was obviously the highlight for a lot of the students, the community initiative. So I think it's really important that we build up this, this rapport between the team and the local community and the coordinator. What happened last year as well was that the students, they take it in turns to be leader for the day. And each morning the coordinator would meet with myself, the school leaders, and the leader, the student leader for the day. And there'd be a discussion about what was going to happen. And then the student leader would feed back to the rest of the team what was expected or what was, the programme for the day. So that was a really good way to communicate, between each other. At the end of the day, again, there'd be a discussion amongst everyone. There'd be feedback about how the day had gone, what we found difficult, could we have done anything differently? So it's really important that we communicate on this level. Everybody's frank and open, and if there's something that we're not happy with, or something is difficult, then we talk about it. We don't just hide it away. All right. So yeah, it's the community initiative is definitely a highlight for a lot of the students, I would say. All right. So I hope that helps.
Brilliant, and actually feeds in quite nicely because myself and Emma, and to a certain extent yourself, Jill, we put our heads together to put together a few ideas which will help you hopefully work alongside your World Challenge leader to make the experience of the initiative as impactful as possible. And I think Jill has really touched on some of those points, which is awesome. But essentially, we know that actually when the team arrive, you probably don't have an understanding of which of the adults is the leader. So interestingly, we've kind of toyed with the idea about whether we can rectify that before you travel. And, obviously, if you wanted to know who your leader is before they arrive, then, we have a leader profile that we can share with you. So, feel free to reach out if that would be useful, because we're more than happy to share that with you. But aside from that, when your team do arrive, there are a few things that, can happen. Definitely arrange an initial meeting to establish a shared understanding and a working relationship. I think obviously Jill touched on the fact that they agreed that they would have a daily meeting, which would also include the student leader for the day so that they could communicate back to the team. But that's great because it gives you the opportunity to align expectations right from the get-go. And then perhaps discuss any immediate concerns. It's absolutely imperative that everyone is frank and open, because that gives you the opportunity to work through any issues and make sure that everyone is on the same hymn sheet. You also need to set a time to follow up, throughout the experience, so that you can check in on how the team are doing, team dynamics, and also hopefully make any necessary adjustments if things aren't quite going to plan. It also gives you the opportunity to identify further tasks and tangible achievements that will help students to see their impact in real time as well. So don't be afraid, to kind of approach the World Challenge leader to, get some direct feedback. I know that's not always easy to do, but I think, as Jill demonstrated in this particular circumstance, if you are as open as you possibly can, then it gives you the opportunity to make sure that you're collaborating to the best of your ability with both the World Challenge leader and also the team, because as a whole, we are working towards the same goal, and we should be working side by side to make the experience as impactful as possible for the students, but also for yourself and your community as well. And I think that's everything that we wanted to cover with you today. But feel free, please ask us any questions that you have. Myself, Jill, and Emma will be really happy to answer it. So yeah, over to you.
Thank you so much, Elle and Jill. So many great sort of experiences there, but also some good, amazing tips as well. So thank you both so much for being here. And I realized, Jill, when you were speaking, probably many of our partners here have met you before. They might already know you and have had the pleasure of working with you. So yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
No
I
problem.
have a few questions myself that I've just noted down as you've both been speaking, and I have made everyone's microphones available. So when you start these sessions, you're muted and you're unable to unmute, but I have just enabled all your microphones. So if anyone does want to open their microphone and ask anything, you do have the ability to do so, or you can write your question down as well. But my first question is for you, Jill, if that's okay. So obviously, it's really important that our hosts at the Community Initiative and the World Challenge Leader have the opportunity to meet or to discuss the team and the schedule and any changes that might need to be made or any adjustments. What should we do as partners or hosts if when the team arrive that there isn't a natural moment for that? So maybe a member of the team is unwell, or the team might arrive later than scheduled and everything feels busy or rushed. What's your advice for how we make that time if it's not immediately clear when that would be?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. And yeah, you do make the time, all right? And obviously, if someone is unwell, then your priority is to look after the student and get them sorted. And, yes, you do arrive late sometimes and they want to go to their accommodation, etc., etc. All right. So I think what you have to do is deal with things as and when they, come upon you. And then, you make time to meet with the coordinator once everyone else has settled down, all right? And whether that's 1 o'clock in the morning, so be it. But yeah, you do make the time, all right? And at first you might think that there isn't any time, but there is, all right? Once you get things organized in your head and everybody has, you have your priorities, what you deal with first, and then we'll sit down and have a chat about what's what. All right. And it might be that maybe we have to go to bed and sleep and we'll do it first thing in the morning. All right. It's not the end of the world, is it?
Thank you. And then, Jill, another question for you is, are there key questions that our partners or our hosts could ask you as a leader that would help you to communicate? So, for example, around, how everyone's feeling, or how everyone, whether it's busy enough as a schedule. Is there any key things that you think are really important for our partners to ask you as the leader on the trip?
Yeah. Last year, both coordinators in Vietnam and in Morocco, they were very proactive, all right? And they asked the questions constantly each morning. Maybe we're waiting for the student leader to arrive and he'd say, how are the team? Is everyone all right after yesterday? So really, really wanting to know about the team. And, if somebody had been poorly or somebody has like their diet, they're a bit off their food or whatever, they're very concerned that, that they're meeting the needs. And I would say over the last since COVID, I would say that the community initiative coordinators have been more proactive than pre-COVID. So I would say that it's always been a bit more positive impact, I would say. So I think I just think that myself with the coordinator and school leaders, if we can strike up a really good relationship from the start, all right, obviously I will ask questions about the initiative as well, anything that we need to know any background, previous teams that have been to the initiative? Are there any other teams following on from when we leave? I have had updates from the Vietnam coordinator to show us how, like photographs of the house that we were building for single women with their children. So that's been really good, having sort of follow on from that as well. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, so lots of open communication and being proactive about, you know, every day those check-ins of how is the team, how are they getting on, what adjustments do we need to make? Being really important.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, are the tasks suitable? You know, the roles that the students are playing, is it too strenuous? Do we need to put other things in place? You know, like the welfare and the safety of the children, of the students, are paramount. And yeah, as long as everybody is aware of that, I think, as well.
And going on from that as well, is your leader, or in this case Jill, she'll have created a really good understanding of the expectations of the travelling school leaders as well. So Jill will be able to, or your leader will be able to, hopefully feed into that in your initial meeting, so that that can be at the you know, the forefront of any sort of discussions thereafter as well, because you know, most will come into this with a preconceived idea of how it should be. So it's important that you do take that into consideration, but you work to adapt, to try and to kind of meet that as well.
Thank you both. Thank you so much, Jill. And then Shell, my final question that I've noted down is for yourself. So you spoke earlier about trip placement and making sure we place the right leaders with the right trips and the right schools. So obviously all of our partners, the majority of our partners, you know, feel very confident in English, which I'm very happy and very lucky about, because my language skills are appalling, so I very much appreciate them all speaking English with me. On the ground, you know, some of our hosts do feel more comfortable in other languages. So for example, it might be French, for example, in Morocco specifically. Is it possible for our partners to share that information with me, and for me to share that with you? I know it's not always guaranteed that we're able to accommodate that, but yeah, what would your advice be if there was a situation like that where our hosts thought, you know, there's specific languages or specific skills that they thought would really support them when it comes to a leader?
Yep, that's really, really helpful. And, you know, it can feed perfectly into making sure that we're placing the most suitable leader to support a trip, because it's not just about supporting the team, but it's about supporting the wider team as well. So that would be in terms of the initiative, and also our community partners as well. And with respect of that, I did mention that, you know, all of our leaders come with very different experiences, and as a result of that, they do come with varied language skills as well. So it is something that we might, you know, routinely ask, do you have any additional languages that you can speak? But also it might not just be the leader who has that experience. Jill mentioned the fact that our students have some amazing knowledge and experience, and you know, it might be them that have the ability to speak the language as well. So we can always take that into consideration. And I know for a fact that in some of our trips to South American destinations, where Spanish, you know, would be a really good skill to have, that, you know, our students have been the Spanish speakers, and they've taught the group some phrases and stuff, so that obviously it makes the experience within the community more meaningful as well. But yes, absolutely, if there's a way that, you know, our partners can share that information with us, then it's definitely something that we could put into the mix. Might not always be able to guarantee that we can find that perfect leader, but we'll definitely have a good go.
Thank you so much, Shell. So absolutely, if anyone has any any thoughts or ideas about that, you can share it with me when we meet, when we start to do our briefings for the summer trips as well. So yeah, please keep that in mind. Now, is anyone wanting to ask a question? I've taken up lots of Jill and Shell's time. Was there anyone that wanted to open their microphone to ask anything? No, there's no problem if not.
Hello.
Oh, yes, go on.
From Discover.
Go on, Fong. Nice to see you.
So thank you very much for sharing with us. So I have one question. So we see that our virtual leader often bring a heavy luggage with them when they travel on the trip. So it would be great for us to understand which item equipment they often carry during the trip with the school group. Could you please share with us?
Absolutely. And so we actually provide all of our teams with a standard group kit. And this is primarily a safety kit, which is obviously just preparing for any eventuality on a trip. So our leaders or routinely will share that kit out between the group, especially when they're traveling. But essentially, we do have a kit list that we can share with you, but it does actually include things like a rope, a carabiner, sling, group shelter, could be a tarpaulin if the obviously the climate is warmer. It will have the medical kits, communication kits, anything really to make sure that we are keeping the group safe and managing risk while they're away.
Thank you, Fong. Rajesh, you've got your microphone open. Did you have a question?
Yeah. Hi, namaste.
Yeah, good.
Thank
Hi,
you very
namaste.
much. It's
Nice
really informative. Thank you very much, Michaela and Gil, of course, Emma. So I have just kind of like a worries, maybe just concern about the safety and security for the parts. Yeah, we don't really compromise with the safety security. There is always absolute. Just a concern like how high, for example, because most of the kids, they will be involved in doing all the construction and rebuilding all the projects. So how high can they go? Like normally, like a 3 feet, 4 feet. I got to see the pictures when Michael was presenting. That was about 10, 12 feet high. Can they climb? Because sometimes they will have a platform if they are building the wall. So in 4 feet, they have a platform and then they can work on top of that if they need to build the wall or whatever. Is that okay, or it definitely depends upon leader to leader because they don't want to take risk because they just always want to be safe and secure side. But definitely we also don't want to make any kind of situation which is questionable. But can they climb like a higher than 5 feet or 3 feet, something like that? Is there any proper measure from our side? I mean, from the World Challenge?
Yeah, I think that's probably a question for me, Jill and Michelle, if that's okay.
Yeah.
More of a safety question. Hi, Rajesh, yes, and you're right, there is a picture in there which I actually put in, which probably wouldn't meet World Challenge standards today. I think it's an older picture that you saw, so it's a good question.
It's just a strike in my mind, sorry.
Yeah, you saw it and thought, hang on a second. So yeah, I put it in, but mostly because I thought it was a good picture, so I should take that out because it's from probably an old picture from World Challenge. So there are requirements. So what I'll do, Rajesh, is let me share the safety documents with you.
Okay.
So there are requirements in terms of height, but also in terms of sort of the levels and how we should manage that when we're looking at safety. So let me share that with you. There's a specific document. I can share it with everybody as well. But I think, Rajesh, what you did bring up is an interesting question, which is again possibly one for you, Jill, if you don't mind, which is obviously each leader is different. So we have our World Challenge standards, and we share those with all of our partners, and they spend time with me sort of discussing those and reviewing them. But obviously the leader is our eyes and ears on the ground. So obviously you are dynamically risk assessing everything as you go in terms of the situation that you're actually in. Do you mind just explaining maybe how you go about that and why it is that actually maybe some leaders will have different thoughts
Yeah.
to others on what's okay or what's safe. Yeah, do you mind just sharing that? That might be helpful for all of us here.
Yeah, sure. So usually when we arrive at an initiative site, right, we will, as a group, as a team, and with the coordinator as well, we will look at what the initiative is. And there's usually a couple of the students that are leaders for risk assessment and things like that. All right. So we give them the ownership of looking at what we're going to be working at. Can they think of anything that may happen, or what do we need to be aware of? So you're actually putting the students on the spot straight away. All right. And they are, because that is what they wanted to sort of specialize in. All right. Risk assessment and health and safety. So together, all right, we will prompt them if they're stuck, obviously. All right. But that's how I go about doing it. All right. And obviously they might oversee some things, so we might give them gentle prompts as to what to look out for. And it's all about keeping the team safe all the time. All right. And it's things like if we're lifting heavy things, using the right stance, bending your knees, etc. If there's a lot of breeze blocks to carry them, we usually come up with the plan that we're going to make a human chain and we're going to pass the bricks, the blocks along that way rather than having to walk, great distance with them. So we're trying to look at solutions, and there's always an answer, isn't there? But we're trying to get the students to come up with the answers. If that makes sense. All right.
Yeah, it does. It
does. I think, Jill, am I also right in thinking, obviously every team and every school is completely different. So as well as looking at like those World Challenge standards that we set in terms of those sort of basic requirements, from your perspective and from the students' perspective, when they're doing their risk assessments, each school will be different because of the dynamics of the group, the age of the students, the needs of the school leaders. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, every team is completely different. All right. I mean, I just gave you a general example there, but I have had teams where no students want to take ownership of risk assessments. So together with the school leaders and myself, we will point things out and sort of try to get them to speak as a team. All right. It might take a long time sometimes. All right. But we get there eventually. They get the idea. Or I might give them, the first time we go, I will give them an example of this is what we need to look out for. This is what I'd like you to do, to take care of yourselves, and making sure that they've all got, their work gloves with them. They've got plenty of fluid. They've got the sunscreen, they've got the hats, and they've got snacks as well, right, to supplement, when we have breaks and things like that, because they do use a lot of energy, all right, and it's important to keep them strong and healthy, and, so that they're able to complete the work, etc. All right. So, and obviously, some teams are not as energetic as other teams as well, right? Where, they tire very quickly. So again, you've got to build in more sort of rest time for them. You've got to take that into account rather than, working them to the ground where they're absolutely exhausted. So, and if people need to take time out, that's fair enough, right? Your team, there's usually enough people so people can take a time out and recover, recuperate, so they refresh and things like that. So, you do play it by ear a lot of the time, looking at your team. You can usually suss out, who's okay and who's not okay. All right.
Yeah, thank you, Jill. Thank you.
I have one more. Sorry.
Go on, Rajesh.
It's okay.
Regarding the safety equipment, like as Gil, you were mentioning, bringing gloves, a mask, something like that. I think we need to make sure that the students, they bring along with them. Because as per our experience, lots of kids, almost 75% kids did not bring any safety equipments, even no mask, no gloves. Safety glasses were different. Even like when we provided the medical mask, because they were working on mixing the cements things, because medical masks may not be appropriate to use while they are working with the cements, because there will be lots of dust, cement dust, and some of our leaders were saying, oh, maybe there should be a different type of mask that protects fully from the cement dust for the health, which is definitely makes sense. But should we make sure the kids, they bring all the necessary safety gears that they need during their project, so that we don't need to worry, and they don't need to worry as well? Even plus the leaders, sometimes they're gonna have, okay, hey, why you didn't bring? Because, and we definitely have some emergency supplies there, and we do provide, and we did provide also. But it would be great if they bring their own this kind of gears, equipments, which would be very helpful for them to cope with their project when they're working in a site.
I think
Yeah,
this again.
sorry.
Oh, sorry, Jill. That's probably a
Yeah.
question for me more, but you carry on, and I'll.
Yeah, I was just going to say very quickly. Usually, I mentioned to the students on the build-up day, I go through, make sure they've got old clothing for the project, they've got their gloves, they've got everything that we've mentioned so far. And also, I mentioned to them to bring like a bandana, because we sometimes use the bandana as a mask.
Yeah,
All right. And also safety glasses we've never taken, but they do wear their sunglasses sometimes when we're working with you know, if there's going to be dust particles and things. All right. Maybe it's something we could include. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you, Jill. I think so, Rajesh, obviously this is on a case-by-case basis and something that each initiative should discuss with me. So obviously there are certain things that the teams can bring with them, but they do have limited pack. And there are certain things that we don't want every student to buy individually, because, for example, gloves, you know, we would rather, you know, they can probably be used again by the next team. So we don't want to waste materials or waste equipment. So in many cases, we ask that you have those and you provide them so that we can provide them for each team. But absolutely, you know, safety should be our number one priority always. So that's something that you can discuss with me, Rajesh, and everyone can come to me, and then we can work out the best arrangement in terms of, you know, what we build into our budget for the initiative, so that we can have those materials there, and if you're able to store them, and as you said, Jill, you know, what actually will the team be bringing with them that they can use, you know, or for example, you know, if they need night torches, for example, can we build that into their kit lists? So that does need to be planned ahead of time, because we provide the kit lists to the students. So if we need them to bring specific things, we need to tell them. So yeah, it's more of a case by case, Rajesh, I think. So maybe you and I can speak more specifically about your case, and then anyone who'd like to discuss that can absolutely bring it to me as well.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Emma, could we just loop back to the question around why, you know, leaders sometimes look at safety slightly different? And it's really just to sum up exactly what Jill and yourself were saying, in that leaders are responsible for what we call dynamic risk assessment. And what that means is they will assess the level of risk according to conditions on the ground. And that might include the capabilities of the group. It might be the surrounding area. It would definitely be the weather, for example. All of those things will contribute to how the leader views safety. So I think that's just important, just to kind of sum that up in terms of why there will never be just a constant view of you know, the operating procedures, because there are so many elements that contribute into that and can change the situation as well.
Yeah, thank you, Shah. You summed that perfectly, and really highlights why it's so important that the leader and our initiative hosts are working really closely together. So that if we need to come up with a backup plan, or we need to come up with some adjustments, that, you know, your leader has so much experience. As Jill shared, you know, she's experiencing multiple initiatives, different countries, different teams every year. So they will always be able to bring to you ideas and help to support you as we make those adjustments as well. Thank you so much, everybody. Does anyone else have any questions? I'm aware we've sort of reached our time limit, so we will wrap up unless anyone has any other questions.
Actually, I just have, it's a quick question.
Hi, Naomi,
just
go
about
ahead.
the trainings. Hi. So the trainings, do they happen like during onboarding, or is it every season? Like, what's the frequency of it?
So in terms of training, every leader has to go through it every year. So all of our leaders will do online training. All of our leaders will have to hopefully attend a navigating their itinerary session. If they can't, we will send them a recording, much like what we're doing here today. And we will ask them all to attend a summit. So it is ongoing training because, you know, things change year by year. And as a result of that, we need to make sure that our leaders, whether they've led 20 times before in the past, that they're brought up to speed with that, and we can be sure that, you know, they have that knowledge and they've taken it on board. And, you know, we'll continue to have briefing meetings with them, regardless of whether they've led 2 months beforehand, just so that they can be absolutely aware of what our expectations are of them, basically.
Perfect. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. So on behalf of myself, and I hope all of our partners as well, it's been so wonderful having you both with us today. So thank you so much, Jill and Michelle. You have shared so much, and it's so valuable for us to understand the process of becoming a leader and the training, and how every leader is completely different, and the different ways that you work, and the experience and the skills that you bring. So I really appreciate it. So thank you both, Michelle and Jill.
Thank you.
And then thank you so much, as always, to all of our partners who are here. It's so wonderful to see our community, and for, you know, to come together and learn and ask questions. And as I always say in these sessions, if you have a question, chances are someone else has the same question or a similar question. So it's so wonderful for us to learn together, and, you know, really work to make sure that our community partnerships and our initiatives bring everything we all want them to, both for our students and your communities and your organizations as well. So I really appreciate you all taking the time to be here and learn with me. And this session will be recorded and shared afterwards, as always, so that you can share it with your teams, and feel free to refer back to it as well as you're doing your own training throughout the season too. So thank you all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day wherever you are. Thank you again, Michelle and Jill. Really, really appreciate your time. And look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.